Welcome to our first episode of Therapy, Tech, and Takeout, where humor meets healing with bite-sized chunks of wisdom and techie tips. I'm Toni Teixeira. I'm a therapist, entrepreneur, ethics nerd, and recovering overthinker.
And I'm Jackie Toll, a tech entrepreneur, unapologetic spreadsheet addict, and low rent stand-up comedian. Hey Tony, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm great. How are
That's
you?
awesome. What's your vibe in this week?
What am I vibing? I have been doing a lot of training. My therapy, getting into I geek out on a lot of the trauma training, which I guess kind of sounds weird, but just doing like really a variety of things. And it's really exciting because I think I'm just at this stage in my career where I've absorbed a lot of information and I really want to get creative in using it. So, even learning new tools. I just get really excited about that. And then about pulling them in and finding like really cool places during sessions to do that. So I'm just super excited about that. I just love learning and never want to stop.
I love that.
Uh,
No, I totally agree with you. That's so fun.
yeah, how about you?
I am getting excited to go on a girls' trip with a
Ooh,
bunch of ladies and I haven't really done that. I've gone on a trip with like a friend or whatever, but this will be a big group, so I'm excited. We're
where are
going to
you going?
Vegas.
Oh my goodness.
It should be fun.
Yeah, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That'll be awesome.
Exactly. And I feel like these ladies are very committed to that. So, it should be
Um,
fun.
oh my goodness, have you watched Hacks?
Oh, I love hacks.
Don't you love that? So when you say Vegas, I think, I just like think of that
Oh,
show.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, we just finished, we binged it. We just finished the last episode of season 4. So now I'm like,
Oh,
oh, no,
I
no, no,
know.
no.
It's such a
So
painful wait. I'm so excited every season when it comes out. Hannah Embrinder I don't know if that's how you say her last name, but she's just so funny.
yeah, yeah. I bet you relate, my stand-up comic friend.
Oh, yeah, like so relatable. She's definitely
I
a
can't.
lot farther down that journey, even on the show, like, than I've ever made it. But no, it's cool to watch people work on comedy. I
Yeah,
love things like that. I even love Mike Birbiglia has a podcast called Working It Out, where and I love that
I
show.
yeah,
So
I
yeah.
yeah, I've seen him. I think I saw one with Nathan Lane was on. That was
Oh, fun.
really, really, really funny. Yeah. But I can't wait to hear about your trip and your antics in Las Vegas. I hope you'll share when you come back. I'm going to be living vicariously through you.
Absolutely, I will. But I'm really
Yeah.
excited to get into what we're talking about this week too.
Yeah. What's going on? What are we doing today?
So today we're talking about entrepreneurs and tech founders who use like their real life experiences and trauma base, actually to
Hmm.
come up with things to help solve what they went through or help mitigate what they went through.
Mm.
Um, and the story today was about a guy named Noah Robinson. And he has, he when he was a young kid, he was, very depressed, suicidal, and video games really gave him a place to sort of be have anonymity and like create community still with people where he could feel confident and things like that. And he really wanted to leverage that. And he's created this company called Inner World. And that's what it does. It has a level of like all different levels of engagement that you can work with it on. But he's working with like Jewel, and he actually got into like a PhD program, I think, around this idea of solving, using tech to solve this problem. And I just think it's so interesting and so cool to see things that are like, not to diss on anything that's out there, but like Facebook came out of like, measuring people's hotness, basically,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Right.
and
Right.
like this is like solving, this is like a kid, a young guy like with a tech idea and stuff, but it's like trying to at least solve, you know, a,
Hmm.
a real pain in people's lives. So I think
Yeah.
that's just very cool.
Big issues. We've been talking about like the slippery slope of technology, and the harm that it could potentially do, the power that it has, can leak over into doing harm. And, the upside is that someone creative like this who's using his own personal experience to create technology that can help other people. I was very impressed with the kind of a whole notion about creating this platform and the creativity. I think his PhD is in the neuroscience, and he's a CBT, cognitive behavioral guy. Um, so to use technology and principle that's from theory, like not, kind of stuff that they're making up. Like he's using interventions and techniques that are grounded and rooted in theory. Um, on this, I guess, is it an app or a website or both? I wasn't sure about that. I think
Yeah,
it's an
I
app,
th
right?
I think it's an app. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, uh, to help youth, and I think that's really the age range they're targeting, like maybe adolescents, to not feel so alone in the world and to take the stigma away of
Yeah.
mental illness. That you can reach out for help, and there's nothing to be ashamed of to get help. So that was really, really helpful. In a different way. You mentioned like the anonymity piece. What do you think about that?
So yeah, I mean, I was really interested. I think the thing that first jumped out to me, from this is like the idea of how it can be both helpful and then maybe hindering, right? To have anonymity in the healing process, right? It might be easy to um come forward with things you're struggling with and things like that, but like if you can't actually show yourself, like are you real, like
Yeah, so like we probably should mention that it's like an avatar based world,
yeah.
right? So like Noah Robinson actually developed this because he himself had turned to RuneScape, to this game community for like 3 years, that helped him be able to talk about his identity, talk about himself, and share stuff in a way where there was anonymity. I think that's really how he came up with that, which gave him enough confidence then to talk to his family. And it was really
For
around him
sure.
coming out to his family, and thank goodness he really got a lot of support for that. So that's a huge and really scary thing.
Yeah.
So this inner world is developed so that people use avatars instead of themselves, kind of like a game. Any of these, RuneScape or War of War, World of Warcraft, or anything like that, that can step in front of, be out there so
Yeah.
that you're speaking really through that avatar. Um, the upside is that you can talk about your experience, but the downside is you're not really talking from your self and being seen for who you are. So I think that was the issue
It's an
that you're bringing up, right?
Yeah, it's like an interesting piece, right? Like I think back to when I was a kid and I grew up in the Catholic Church and like everything you see about going to confession, it's always like, you have that like anonymity kind of supposedly, right? It's like the theory. Well, I went to like a really progressive Catholic church and like you had to do confession like face to face with the priest and
Hmm.
it was like I remember being like I'm not telling, you know what I mean, like I had to make up some like minor things like to have
Yeah.
like in a way that like I think, yeah, and I remember thinking about that of how I felt ripped off that like you didn't have at least that like bit of hey I can just say what I want to say in this room.
They changed it. They changed it for me too. And I remember when they changed it in my church. I was a little girl. I grew up Catholic as well. And the confessionals used to have the wall. And then they broke down the walls. And like I think I was doing my confirmation. And, we had to
Like
go into
yeah.
that like little room. It's like, what with the bright light even.
Yes.
But there's two things. One is that, we're able to say things that maybe we would not normally say, which is great. That can be a really big relief. But in terms of healing and in the process of healing, shame is such a big part of it. And if we take away the who we are, um, we're not creating connection with another human being and saying, this is who I am, and having that opportunity to connect, be cared for who we are just for being. So, what does worry me a little bit about the concepts of the avatar is that if we don't encourage people to take the next step, which is to really show up for who they are, we might be inducing some shame, or we might be not getting to that place where people are really able to work on that shame and really be seen as themselves.
Where do you think the line for like how do you think you'd know which place you were in? Are there any telltale signs or I'm just trying to think for me like
Like in your therapy,
or
is
just
that what
like
you mean? What?
how would you know like oh it, like I guess maybe if you were just if shame was like overwhelming your ability to share or because I mean I think that the like you're going in there right or like a lot of people
Mhm.
have a shame or thing that they need to talk
Mhm.
about but it might not be all it might be focused and this gives them the opportunity to bring it up deal with it and like this like Tyler or Noah had then he was able to go out and like share it with his family so maybe it's like if you can only
Yeah.
have it in the game and you can't like and you've been in the game for 10 years you can't take it out there's probably some like a
Yeah.
period of time or something
Yeah,
um
so I mean it can reduce enough of it, the anxiety
yeah
around, we're not able to talk about or access feelings when anxiety is in the door. So if we're feeling really anxious, we're not going to even go there. So it's possible it kind of lowers the temperature enough to feel comfortable with that topic. And then that topic can be shared with other people. Shame can be both helpful and also toxic, because appropriate shame is, oh, I did something wrong, I better do something, I better fix that. And it's like kind of part of our survival package, so that we can stay connected to the groups of people that are out there. um, but it can become toxic, and there's a lot of blame, there's a lot of secrecy, we beat ourselves up and harm ourselves, on the inside or even on the outside. um, but it also disconnects us from community, it disconnects us, and that's really what we need to heal. Healing, like, you can read self-help books up the wazoo, but if you don't practice those skills in the real world around people, then it's never really going to get better. It stays up here. It doesn't, like, I take a bottom up approach, doesn't happen in the body, and it doesn't change relationships or heal ourselves.
no I think that makes a lot of sense I think the other place where anonymity in this gets a little scary for me, but also was something I was so interested in because I just don't have enough exposure to it, but I see it in so many places recently, is the idea that this, like the introductory level of this program, is like peer-to-peer count and like peer counseling type things. And,
Mm-hmm.
I know that peer counseling is used, in a whole bunch of different things even in like the adult world with things like AA and like those types of or grief groups and things like that so I'm interested to find out a little bit more from you like how you see peer counseling and like when that's a really good fit for people and how when it might be used to augment like traditional therapy things like that.
Yeah, I think peer-to-peer groups are really powerful. A lot of the services in the addiction world base their work around that. A lot of rehabs, for example, they hire people who were former addicts to come in
Sure.
and do a lot of the work that happens in those facilities. It's real. And NAMI, National Association for Mental Illness, they are, I think, big proponents of peer-to-peer groups and work, as well as therapy, of course. um and it can be powerful and helpful. That's a piece that takes away, it helps take away the shame, right? It's kind of like being real with other people who are in the same boat. But there are nuances in terms of healing. I think that there's a place for that, but there also needs to be a place for therapy. There needs to be a place for someone who has clinical discernment and can drive the sessions or support the sessions in a way that's going to move toward greater rewards in terms of the work, because part of what we do is to provide support, to listen, to empathize, and peers can do that. But then the real stuff happens. Oh, I shouldn't say real stuff, but like the other stuff that happens is based on clinical interventions that peers really wouldn't have the opportunity to do for each other. And some of the peer groups can be kind of confrontational, and in no way, shape, or form am I minimizing or, negating what they can do. But for some people, that confrontational style that's classically in some of the, AA kinds of groups, might produce a little bit more shame, might make them less likely to go to meetings. And that model doesn't work for everyone. Um, so a trained professional is going to have a different way to take, they're going to be able to take
Yeah.
people like further down the road, if that makes sense. Yeah. Hmm.
I think that's so interesting. And so when you think about something like this, also, it's like, is there any, or, if it's kids uh, being peers to kids, um, like what type of like training and oversight and those types of things are around? Because like, obviously, they're just figuring like they're kids, like they,
Hmm. Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
are just are they're all learning. It should be a place, they should be allowed to be in a place of learning, of like we all should, but like they definitely should.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that that's an interesting component. And then also with it being anonymous, right, where you're not looking at the person, how do you know that that's really a kid? Like that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of scary, and like letting your kid go into this space where you think they're going to
You
be.
mean like in inner world when the
Yeah,
kids are getting together? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping I went to the website and I wasn't really, it didn't seem like there was that much information. So I wasn't sure about what the oversight was. They do have mental health professionals, and
yeah, I
depending on
saw
your
that.
tier, right, you can work with, you can do the peer-led groups, you can get your, support from a mental health professional. In group therapy, you have peers sitting in a group, but you also have a therapist. So I don't know in terms of those peer-led groups, is there somebody there who has more experience, who knows how to kind of monitor the group? Is there a mental health professional that's also in there? Wasn't really sure about the details of all of that. So what I would want to know as a parent is, how do you maintain this community to keep it safe? Because as we know, online, like Discord and some of the games, there's they're just like, Noah Robinson said, he was able to get support. He was lucky that he was part
Yeah,
of a group that was really supportive, but that could also be really toxic, right?
for
For
sure.
people who in any, not just the gaming world, but like anywhere, right? You bring a group of people together and that chemistry could be like, you just really toxic. So I would want to know, how is the group handled? How is it maintained? How do they keep it safe? So, for example, in the sexual assault world, there are chat rooms that survivors can go on 24/7. It's on a delay, and there's also someone who monitors the room who can kick somebody off. So they'll see if somebody comes in and they're saying something abusive or
Oh,
something
that's good.
inappropriate,
Yeah, that's
and they
smart.
can, right, and they can kick them off
Right.
the service so
Before it
that
even
nobody
comes.
gets traumatized, nobody
Yeah,
actually sees it. So that would be interesting to know. I would
for
really,
sure.
want to, which makes me think maybe we should invite Noah Robinson on
Yeah,
and
for
ask
sure.
him some
I'd
of
love
these
to talk to him.
questions, because we're like
Yeah,
really curious about this. Like, how do they keep that environment really safe and helpful to the people who were part of that community? Yeah.
absolutely. There was another inventor that I had come along in my search for this, and he was actually part of the Parkland shooting, and he came up with an app that basically gives you it listens to like the tone of like the sound of your voice, and it decides like what your mood is, and then it gives you a mindfulness exercise to do, like a little bite-sized thing to do to help you like recenter or get out of a funk or
Mm,
whatever. So like there's a lot of kids, they're not kids anymore, but people who had these traumas and these difficulties as kids. And I would love to talk to one of them and understand more about like how they approach these things, like how did it go from an idea to something that they, like were able to bring funding into and like all of that stuff. I think the whole journey is so interesting. But like you're saying, and then the technical, like how are you looking out for it?
yeah.
What sets you apart from, you know, a, an everyday Silicon Valley company that's like focused just on profits? Like, do you have, because of your story, like is your focus different than that, or those
Yeah.
types of things?
These are really good questions that we have. And so my mind is really working on, gee, how can we have these conversations with some of the entrepreneurs who are doing this to learn more about how they're creating safe spaces, especially for our young people and vulnerable, populations. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Like last time we were talking about AI, and like I just read in the news another suicide, another case where parents, said that they found their son's phone after this happened and they saw the conversation. So like what are some of those safety protocols for these platforms for kids who may come on and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, to ensure that there's support there for that, and somebody there's going to direct them in the right direction. Yeah,
Absolutely. And
yeah.
even you think about like if you're on a platform like this and you're a kid and you're 13 and you're sharing things, that are private and stuff, is that being stored? Can somebody get access to that
Mm,
down the road, like when you're 30 and use it against you?
good point.
So many
Privacy
interesting,
issues.
yeah, like pieces of how, technology has some of these, um, you know,
Yeah,
known sort of
yeah.
vulnerabilities,
Well,
right?
that was my question for you. You took away my question for
Oh,
you, Jackie, which
sorry.
was like, what are the implications, for this kind of technology at a platform like this? So one is definitely privacy issues.
For
What
sure.
else? Yeah.
Well, I think one of the ones on the positive side is scale, right? Like you're able to bring together, a vast group of people and potentially like have, you know, be able to make connections to people that they might not find, where people are really able to find community in situations that may be more unique or specific. So I think that that's really important. I think yeah, the privacy and security piece is really obviously front of mind for like concern. And I think also the when you talk about the other application, like, or even this, like, what's the failure? Yeah, like how are you
Mm,
communicating like the effectiveness of it and things like that, right? Like I think sort of the review process and the transparency to the algorithm, or like transparency into some of that stuff is really
mhm.
important, especially if you get into some of the when bad things happen, right? When
Right.
unexpected things happen, like can you get to the root cause? Can you understand what was going on? Or is it a black box where you don't know what happened and it
Yeah.
makes it harder to fix?
Yeah. Can you trace the point of failure so that you
Yeah.
can fix it for the future? Yeah. Good questions, good thoughts on that. And it seems the stakes are even higher when we're talking about somebody's mental health, when we're talking about people
About
and
a kid's
and
mental
young
health,
people,
right?
kids, and who come, yeah, right, who like might, harm themselves, who might do self-harm. So the stakes are really high on this, around this. Anytime we're working with people's bodies and children, right, and
Yeah.
and and caring for them, we really there's a risk. There's always a risk of harm, so we have to be like super super careful about that. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been really interesting and I've appreciated it. And I'm excited because it does kind of tie into next week. We're going to be talking about cha how your algorithm impacts your outlook on life. How what you're searching for and what apps are picking up about you changes what you're seeing. So I'm excited to continue the conversation about all of these important things with you next week, Toni, for sure.
Yeah, me too. I really love that topic, and I think it's it's really relevant in some of the conversations we're having in the world right now
For
about what
sure.
it is, how we're viewing, and what's coming to us. So, yeah, I really appreciate that topic. That'll be a fun one to talk about. Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And thank
thank
you,
you
everybody,
too.
for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
And any thoughts that you have about this topic? I know Jackie and I both would really love to hear if technology has maybe had a positive or maybe not such a positive impact on your life and your mental health. We'd love to hear some of those thoughts that you have, and if you want to share that with us, that could also help us create more, more stories and interview people and bring some relevant information to you all. So thanks.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye. Take care.